evacuation orders right now for 2 fires in our area. If you live in the area east of Powers and west of Peak Innovation Way, you're asked to get out immediately. These evacuation orders now also impact those living south of Milton, east Proby Boulevard, and east of Hancock Expressway. Big area evacuated.
Yeah, and again, this is impacting traffic that's headed to the airport. A couple of things regarding the airport. We just heard from folks over there saying that if you are expecting someone to come in or you are flying out, don't call the airport. You need to call your individual air carrier to find out what's going on. The airport is telling us that right now they're just sheltering people in place, so people are not allowed to leave the airport as we continue to monitor to see how widely this fire here is going to spread. And of course, again, basically from Asterzon on the north to Grinnell Boulevard on the south, both north and southbound Powers Boulevard are closed. Basically, that is the corridor you're seeing right between those 2 mandatory evacuation zones. Now, again, that is a mandatory evacuation zone on both sides of Powers Boulevard. So if you live in that area, you need to get out. And again, there's a lot of traffic congestion in that area. Folks are trying to avoid it or get out of there altogether with these fire crews going in. And as Mike just told you, and we spoke of earlier, there is at least some aerial support coming in. Winds apparently died down at least enough to get one of those helicopters in the air to make some drops in that area. So that's a good thing. As far as the situation in Teller County, that fire is in the area of
I will tell you, we're just getting a newer map that is giving us an update. It's in the area of County Road 11, south of Bear Trap and Lakemore. The evacuation includes the entire Lakemore subdivision between County Road 11 and County Road 1. We're just getting a map into our newsroom. Hopefully we can get that on air for you to make it a little easier to see. We've got a crew headed that way. Of course, we'll bring you updates, but I can see it looks like this is west of Cripple Creek and west of Mount Pisgah. Just south of 4 Mile Community Baptist Church and the 4 Mile Community Center off of Teller County Road. As soon as we can get that map on the air, we'll show you. Lots of people under mandatory evacuation.
Yeah,
right
we
now,
are
Rob.
getting emails and texts from folks who live in Fremont County, folks in and around the Canyon City area. Obviously, Pueblo, Canyon City, you can see that smoke billowing. Actually, we got a note from our partners in Denver saying they can see the smoke from DIA. That's how significant and how bad it is. And just looking out our back window here, you can see that that smoke plume has increased. We're not sure exactly where it's spreading to, but the bottom line is it looks like it's going to be all hands on deck too to go to that situation, and that's a much more rugged terrain.
It is.
Between
it's very difficult.
Cripple Creek and Florissant. So again, we're continuing to monitor. No new updates as it relates to those mandatory evacuations in Teller County, but we'll continue to monitor that situation as well.
All right, this is some live video just coming into our newsroom of the smoke that you can see billowing off of the south or south of Pikes Peak. Anyone who steps outside right now, you're going to see it.
That's our vantage point right out our back door here in Rock Rimmon, and as you can see, as you look to the left, that's heading further south from Pikes Peak, and you can see the all too familiar mix of brown and white. That is not a good sign. And again, Mike was saying that the winds may die down or lay down a little bit as we move into the early evening hours, but not yet. We can still see the flags outside our station on the other side of the building here that are still blowing pretty good. So again, we're trying to wait for updates from both Springs Fire, El Paso County on that situation going on near the Amazon facility at Powers and Milton E. Proby, but also keeping a really close eye on this scenario west of Colorado Springs, because this is the type of situation that we don't want to see with flames starting in an area that's particularly rugged and hard to get to, and with the dry conditions, with all the trees and shrubs that are just totally dried out. Alex O'Brien and Mike have spoken all afternoon about just how dry it's been, 2-3% humidity. We've had, 42 red flag days in a row now, and it just keeps getting worse. And again, the humidity factors are always playing a part in this, and the winds, of course, the X factor. We can only hope that they'll die down a little bit. It was warm again today, not as hot as yesterday, but still, at this point, everything's dried out. And even if we got a whole 24 hours worth of rain, we've talked about how some of these fuels can just dry out in a matter of time, go into the ground and dry out very quickly as the ground absorbs it and continues to provide this key fuel that is sparking these wildfires and spreading them so quickly.
I spoke with the Teller County Sheriff earlier, about a half hour ago. He was on the way to the scene, telling me all he can say is we've got this wildfire, we've got mandatory evacuations, and it's a really serious situation for a lot of people in our area. We've got Starlight Ranch, that area, under mandatory evacuation right now. This is just south of, I'm trying to zoom in on my map here, of the 4 Mile Baptist Church in the 4 Mile Community Center, just southeast of there, that area near High Park Road, under mandatory evacuation. But it's a very woody terrain, as Rob just mentioned, so it's going to be hard for firefighters to get into that area. No word yet on any air support that's come to the area. We do know some was being used on the one near the Colorado Springs Airport.
Yeah, correct. And as we said, trying to get, we have the Fremont County Airport nearby in Fremont County, where I know they have some of those smaller aircraft that can drop slurry or water, also planes that can monitor from the air. That's not too far away. Again, not sure who's coordinating the response here, but we are getting the information from Teller County, so we have to assume that they're the point on this. But given the proximity to other communities in that area in Teller County, I got to think there's a lot of eyeballs from different parts of the state here. The Forest Service, we know BLM land is in there. Again, we're not sure where the actual source of it was, but when I first heard some scanner traffic an hour or so ago mention that bear trap fire is what the firefighter used as they were communicating with somebody. There is a campground there, a area where folks can gather and meet and hang out, etc. But we're not sure if that's the exact epicenter of where this started, but that's the general area. Now it seems to have taken off. I did see one unofficial notice about how quickly it had spread in just 15 minutes, like 5 or 6 acres. So we know that with all the dry tinder that's up there and the location of it and the inaccessibility of it for firefighters, at least initially, they've got to try and get some aircraft in there some way or another before the sun goes down, because that's the other key to all this, is trying to get the response you can while it's still daylight. Obviously, we still have several more hours of daylight left. You can see, though, I mean, I must say, just looking at that, excuse me, at that live shot, the smoke seems to be just kind of laying there. And we know in some of these other worst-case scenarios we've seen, we know it's bad when you see the wind pushing the smoke in a particular direction in a very strong manner, but it seems like this is kind of settling or floating. So I mean, at least, you know, again, I'm trying to put a positive spin on this because I don't know how bad it is at the actual center of the fire, but from the standpoint that wind could be affecting the movement of this fire, at least that shot, which is a live shot, looks as though, you know, the smoke is kind of just sitting there. It's not moving one way or the other very quickly. But again, we're on the north side of where the major point of the fire is right now.
We've got a lot of people under mandatory evacuations right now. A lot of people right near the Colorado Springs Airport. That airport's sheltering in place also. They're saying do not call the airport. If you've got a flight in or out of there today, call the airline to see what's next for you. We've got road closures on Powers Boulevard near Milton, Proby, and they're asking at the Springs Airport phone lines only for emergency use at this point.
Yeah, and obviously, depending on how much smoke there is, and we saw early on from some of that video we rolled, just how difficult that can be for air traffic in and out. So I assume at this point, and again, I'm just assuming here, we haven't heard this officially from the airport, that they've halted flights flying in. Just depends on where that smoke's blowing. It looked like it was moving from east to west, but I'm not sure exactly what the wind direction is, which would be away from the airport. But we want to check in with Alex O'Brien, by the way, who's right in that area now. What can you tell us, Alex?
Hey Rob, hey Diane. So obviously, first thing you'll notice from this live shot, it's very windy out here. Second thing, this plume of smoke behind me. I'm at Milton E. Proby and Hancock Expressway. Now, what we first saw when we arrived was areas further south were billowing up with smoke, but now it does seem to be progressing northward. Now, I cannot see the fire from this vantage point. This neighborhood here is kind of uphill, and then it goes downhill towards Powers, where the grass is burning along Powers. But there's a couple things I want to point out to you. There's that plume of smoke, of course, but then there is also a helicopter here that's been flying despite these strong winds. They have been dropping water on this fire, but it still continues to billow up. It seems to be stretching pretty far in terms of length, because this plume of smoke has kind of filled up the horizon here. And so we've been watching this helicopter, we're watching this plume of smoke, and we also are looking at, wow, that's really starting to plume up there. So this has kind of been what's been going on here over the past, I'd say, hour and a half. Things are calm, and then something else catches on fire. The grass really blossoms up into this huge plume of smoke. Because I can't see the fire, I can't tell you exactly whether or not it's just grass burning or not. Now, bear with me for a moment. I want to actually swing us around, because from our perspective here, we can also see all the smoke coming off of the Teller County fire.